Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Way Forward podcast. This episode, we had on Aubert Bastiat, and my goodness, that episode, I was smiling so much listening to Aubert speak that I found my mouth was hurting from how much I was smiling. Talk about someone who is embodying what they are meant to be doing, as expressing their unique contribution or their unique version of the creator, exuding love in so many ways and really bringing about true healing and helping other men understand what it means to be the sacred masculine fully embodied. And I love this dude like a brother. And it's crazy because, like with many of these guests, I've never met him in person, but I truly love Aubert. I'm so thankful that he was willing to join me on my show. And without further ado, here is the episode with Aubert Bastiat. So how long have you been growing your hair?
It's been, I started letting it grow out after, 2000, I want to say 2012. That's when I graduated college. I went back to college. So yeah, 2012.
What did you major in when you went to school?
So initially I was a communications and psychology major, and then I shifted to human services.
That makes a lot of sense with you.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. You're one of the few that's like doing what they went to school for.
Because I went back. Well, no, because I went back. I after I had my awakening, I got strong message from God: go back to school, finish, transfer, like do it, just complete it. And I was a communications major, like journalism, and so I enjoy writing, but I just don't enjoy like the structure and framework of journalism as it was.
Yeah.
And just was standing in the hall of the communications building, was like, this doesn't feel right. I was like, this doesn't feel like where I'm meant to be. And so I shifted to human communications, and I was like, this still doesn't feel right. And I ended up taking a class, counseling psychology, theories and techniques in counseling psychology. And that class blew me open. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do, like this stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. Cause like for me, it's so cool too. And the amount of people, like I spend time in Germany. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. I spend time in Germany. I lived there playing a professional sport for like 6 months. And
what are you playing?
You've probably never heard of it. Team handball. I played on the U.S. national team. It's an Olympic sport. We haven't qualified since 1996. I'll send you some videos after that. But part of my time in the Army was being an athlete in this program in the Army called, yeah. I didn't have to deploy or do anything ever in the Army. So I had a pretty easy. I was in this thing called the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program. Yeah. Where if you're on a U.S. national team for any of the Olympic sports, you get to do that full time. So anyway, yeah, dude, it was a cool experience. Anyway, I got to play professionally in Germany. And when I was in Germany, most of the people there, they go to school a little bit later. They don't feel pressure to go to school either. It's like,
it makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Because they sort of sit and reflect on what they want to do, like what their life's purpose is, or what they feel their path is with their life, which, like, in America, we're so go corporate. I'm going to work a 9 to 5, 40 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
It's
absurd. Just absurd. Set us up into to be a cog in the wheel. Yeah, exactly. And keep your head down and just do what you're told. And it's nuts, man.
Dude, I want to start with you, with your story, actually, like as far back as you want to go, as much as you want to get into that, just to
What's
get
your
some,
format? Like, how do you usually flow? Is it just like kind of
just
we just
flow,
flow?
man. I have some questions that I structure out, but it's nothing too
Cool.
much. I'll probably include this in there if that's okay with you.
Cool, man. Yeah.
I want it to
Cool.
be as real as possible.
Yeah. Well, we're here for that. I'm here for that. Yeah. Oh, so you want me to go into my story?
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. As much
Yeah,
as you want,
yeah,
as much as you want. I know that's some deep stuff.
yeah, of course, man. Can we just drop in and sync up a little bit? You mind?
Sure.
Cool. Thank you, beloved Father, Mother, God, infinite spirit, source of all creation and all life. We are grateful to celebrate you in this day, in this way, together as brothers, as men on this earth who are here for you, here to amplify the love, the wisdom, and the truth that you're here to bring through us. Please allow us to be conduits of the highest truth, the deepest authenticity. I'm open to feeling it all and however that looks, and grateful to be here with my brother, Alec. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me today, brother. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here with you, to share the sacred space with you, and to really drop in and bring some medicine through for whoever's listening.
That was beautiful, man. I've been saying this thing every morning when I wake up only the past week. But I got it from my mentor. The first thing that I say when I wake up is, what a beautiful day to be. And there's few things that really replicate the feeling of meditating, right? Like the feeling that you truly get the centeredness, the peace of meditating. And that is one of those. And that prayer, or syncing up, as you said it, which is way cooler way of putting it, is an example of that. And, I've talked with you on the phone several times and we've never met in person, but every time I talk with you, man, we get carried away and we forget what we're even supposed to be talking about.
We're just suddenly talking about like just the essence of life and spirit,
Yeah.
and what this is and what we're in. Because
Yes.
it's fascinating, right? What we are in and what we are experiencing and what we get to experience in these human bodies, to know that we are these souls, and that when we're here in ordinary reality, let's say, everything is just like contracted. Our field of vision is just so contracted to what it normally is when we're able to experience ourselves in real time as souls in the present moment. And so anything that can anchor us to that prayer, meditation, and these different practices, and even just speaking it into existence, and really casting those spells that can bring us to like back home. Like, okay, like we are these multidimensional beings that get to experience life in a human body. What a blessing. What a blessing. No matter what happens. Yeah, all my shit got stolen. What a blessing. Because that was exactly what needed to happen to take me to this next level. I'm not there yet. I'm in the process. But I know that it happened for me. Even
Especially when you recenter yourself, right? Like for me, I've found that me saying that lately, I did it right before this, just to recenter before we went into this discussion. I said, what a beautiful day to be. And like every time I say it, I get the biggest smile on my face, right? And it puts me back into that observer of what I'm experiencing, right? That has effect over what I'm experiencing, but ultimately I'm observing all of it and letting it come and go as part of me, And it's that's how you're looking at the situation with everything being stolen that you just told me. You're on a loaner laptop right now. You're crushing it though. You're still doing great.
Yeah. So I'm alive. I'm alive. As long as we're still in these bodies, like we are blessed. We are blessed, even if no matter what happens. And I know that some people might say that's easy, to say, but coming from hell, having been through like the depths of hell, I know like this is if we're not in hell, we're good. we're good. You know, hell is a state of consciousness. Hell is a, you know, just in like seemingly endless suffering and just not knowing the way out, just being like, you know, fixated in that trauma, in that pain, in that old story. So yeah, I guess that's a good segue. Yeah. So to just kind of condense my story into the gold, to like what people would be able to resonate with and connect to. I was born into familial chaos. It was my parents, both sides of my lineage, a lot of cross-generational trauma. Uh, there's brilliance on both sides. There's gold on both sides always, you know, but they were pretty much polar opposites. You know, my dad being, you know, narcissistically wounded, you know, sociopathic, I'd say, super intelligent, spoke like 5 languages. He was like a mining engineer. And my mother being like this wounded, empathic, overly empathic person, feels the pain of the world, and cries for the world, and just very emotional. My dad, the opposite side of that spectrum. Not
Sounds
emotional,
so much like
completely.
my parents already. So I already resonate with this so much. Seriously.
Yeah, man, we're walking parallel paths, man. Like that's the truth of it. And that kind of being the foundation of my sojourn here on earth in this time, in this incarnation, really coming into a household without God. There's no God. God was mocked and laughed at as a, you know, a fairy tale, as yeah, there's definitely some wounding on my father's side with religion, with Christianity. And so yeah, that came out as in there's just no God. There's not only no God, there was no spirituality. There was no higher awareness of like the greater. We're living in a random, chaotic universe. You know, dog eat dog, survival of the fittest perspective.
Yep.
You know, and so kind of growing up in that. My father being wounded himself, and so really passing on a lot of those wounds to me and our family, you know, being just a very angry and kind of volatile presence in our household, just like kind of always feeling like, you know, things could erupt at any moment. So it just wasn't safe. It didn't feel safe. A lot of it's blocked out. I forgot a lot of it, you know, probably for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just a lot of trauma on both sides. Parents separated when I was 5. I was born in Taiwan, and we moved to Southern California to live with my father's father, my grandfather. And yeah, it was just like a painful, like kind of hopeless feeling. You know, there's like moments of joy, moments of you know, goodness, but like by and large, the feeling of it was like, why am I here? Life is painful. This sucks. Why am I here? You know? And so kind of fast forward, got into a lot of trouble, was like really rebellious, and kind of always, you know, either the wrong crowd or gravitating to the wrong crowd, you know, and other wounded boys, and causing trouble, you know, wreaking havoc, vandalizing, all that stuff, growing into elementary school. So just kind of, yeah, just really angry and really hurt, and just trying to feel like I belong somewhere,
Yeah.
you know. And so kind of walking an alternative path from the very beginning, just never really fitting in, never feeling I fit in. I'm mixed race, you know, half white, half Taiwanese. And so this, you know, East and West was at that point not integrated within me. It was like I felt like I didn't fit into any group, you know, so there's really no sense of belonging. I went through a lot of my youth feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. And I did find, you know, some success with, you know, popularity and that, but it was all a show. It was all like, you know, I could make people laugh, I could do things, but they didn't really know me. You know, I was wearing a mask. And yeah, so mental illness in my family. My sisters both had bipolar. My younger sister was schizoaffective, which is like a mix between bipolar and schizophrenia. She could hear voices. So just trauma upon trauma upon trauma.
Trauma responses.
Yeah, man, it was heavy. It was just a really heavy childhood, and I was always looking for the escape, looking for fun, looking for something to take me away from the inner turmoil that I felt, and externalizing my trauma upon others, hurting others in whatever way, you know. And basically that led to, you know, I had some really good relationships and friendships with people in high school that like really helped me, because I was really oriented in a kind of a twisted way, where I was, you know, kind of sadistic, kind of, you know, really jealous, really like insecure, really hated on people and judged them. But at the same time, there's a part of me that was, you know, like really loving and caring. So it's just like really this dichotomy, you know. And I remember just finding earwid.org, pretty early on, and like reading about all these substances. And I was like, wow, like, you know, just like reading all these different experience reports and really just like really fascinated by that whole world, and ended up
what was earwid.org? Was it just like a list of a bunch of like,
it's like a psychedelics database,
okay,
like
yeah,
of all the, you know, Alexander
Yeah.
Shulgin wrote like yeah, Tikal and Pikal, or Pikal, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but yeah, basically it's every substance known to man for the most part, and trip reports and people's experiences and how all this stuff about it. So like that really opened my eyes to a world that like I felt called to exploring. And my friends and I, starting in high school, would you know, kind of either get or make, you know, because you get research chemicals online, and you know, it was a plentiful time, and it still is now on the black market and all that, but that's beside the point. So really started exploring psychonautically. Really started exploring my consciousness and experiencing some crazy things, because I had a lot of insanity inside me, a lot of unprocessed pain inside me, but it was like I knew something was there. And so really going through that kind of self-initiation into these other realms of experience really expanded my perspective of like what this is. And although I didn't, the context was just for fun, like let's just like, but there was something deeper calling me into it. And ultimately it was healing. It was to get healing and explore my consciousness, and to expand and experience more of what I am, like what is this. And so that was like really my first high school kind of really began this double life where I was, you know, exploring these substances, and at this other hand I was also you know, in AP classes, and I was like the yearbook editor, I was like the commissioner of spirit in ASB, you know, and I was also dealing drugs and like living a really double life, you know. And it started catching up to me. I was introduced to crystal methamphetamine, really dove into that because it was just like it took away for the time being all that pain, and just like it felt good. It just felt good, you know, for the first time in my life, felt like just fully good, you know. And it just kind of became a downward path, really into the darkness, into my own shadows, into my own wounding. And so, yeah, spent many years struggling with that, coming in and out of that. Ended up going to jail, getting incarcerated for that. For sales, got a sales charge, spent some time in county jail, which was like a huge eye-opening experience of like, oh my God, this isn't my world. Like I'm not meant to be here, you know? And at the same time, I was, you know, talking to, you know, people that were going to be serving 25 to life. They're facing 25 to life for murder. Like I was just like having an experience talking with just a completely different group of individuals that I hadn't encountered in normal life.
I can imagine so many of them had so much unhealed trauma as well.
Yeah, man, it's vicious in there. It's sad. It's really bleak in a way, because I had the chance to just talk to them and get like kind of to know people's perspectives in there, and it's very rooted in trauma, and just these really limiting beliefs about life, about humanity, about everything, you know? And it was like a clear indicator to me, like, this isn't where I'm meant to be. I'm not meant to be here. And I just like losing my freedom was a huge, like, was one of the first big wake up calls. It's like, this, like, I gotta change. I gotta change. And I was 19. So I was 19 after graduating high school. I ended up in jail. And it wasn't a clear path out of that. You know, I got out of jail and went back to using and fell back into the same crowd. And at some point, I moved out with some friends. So I moved out of my mother's house. We had a small apartment, which is, you know, 2 sisters, me and my mom. And it was, you know, not in a good neighborhood and just not good energy. It's pretty like heavy, dense energy in that area. So it just wasn't a good environment, and my family was struggling, and there's just a lot of chaos still. So moved out with some friends, and that kind of began my journey of healing for the first wave, at least. And so I started really focusing on working out. Working out was like my first huge lifesaver, I'd say, because I just started putting all my energy, because I was like, it was for egoic reasons. I was like tired of being skinny. I was like, you know, that was a big reflection. And also coming off of drugs, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, I need to change this. And that was something really tangible. And so I started working out and just like built that discipline and completely transformed my physical body. And that was what really kind of just expanded my world of like what I could do, what was possible when I really set my mind to it. And just completely transforming my body. And in that process, though, of living in a kind of a party house, it was like, you know, we were all young guys, and, you know, I fell back into dealing drugs again, primarily cannabis. There's other, you know, some other stuff, but it brought me back into exposure to crystal, because someone was like, one of the people that were selling for me, I saw them smoking in the bathroom, and it triggered the fuck out of me. And then basically after that, I fell back into it for like another couple of years.
Wow.
And through that process of going back in, it was like this going into hell. It was really, that's what it felt like. It was like a journey into hell, and just the people I encountered, the world that I saw, you know, single mothers who are prostitutes with their children, and just like smoke, you know, just like, it was just a really bleak and dark experience of going that falling back into it that time around. And it just really shook me to my core, just seeing just how dark it can really get, you know, and how bleak it can really get. But it was really a reflection of all my unhealed stuff that brought me into that vibration and brought me into just running from my pain. Yeah, so running, and it got to the point where my mother asked. I ended up landing a pretty good job, and my mother's like, "Hey, your sister's doing really bad, and we need to help her, and I want to change our environment. So if you can help, let's move in together again, and let's try to really help Shonda." And I was like, "Okay, I'm still fucking up. I'm messing around, but I'm like, I need something good to focus on. I have a good job. I don't want to lose it. All these things, right?" So we move in together as a house, as a family. And it was there where I was really struggling hard to get clean. And I always kind of had faith in myself and my capacity to like have boundaries. And even though I had the way the way I roll as an addict is I would binge and then like clean up and like have a good period and then binge, and then, you know, it was kind of like this back and forth. And but I got to the point where I couldn't stop. I couldn't get out. I couldn't stop this cycle that had been perpetrated of like just binging on the weekends and working, binging on the weekends and working. And so I've lost so many good friendships. People had been like, "Man, I don't want you in my life anymore." Like just a lot of like painful, tough love experiences from my close friends. And you know, I was on the way down, and I felt this incredible weight on my shoulders to help my family. I desperately wanted to help my sister, and I couldn't even help myself, you know. And so I just got to the point where I felt very hopeless, I was in agony with just where I was at and who I was and who I'd become. And just, it was just a lot of pain. And so I came to the point where I made the choice that it would be better off, I would be better off, and my family would be better off if I ended my life, that if I just called it quits. And it was kind of that whole decision-making process happened because I wanted to go score some dope. I wanted to go get high again, and I kept on making promises to myself and breaking them. And it was just like I promised myself that I was gonna get clean, and I was looking to score again. And I just felt so much self-hatred, so much self-disgust, that it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I gotta do it. I don't want to continue this cycle anymore. I gotta leave. And the big thing that was holding me back was the impact that I'd have on my family, because they were suffering too. So yeah, just the darkest point in my life, just feeling like absolutely worthless, hopeless, and just like a miserable failure. Just so much shame. Just like, just done. I was just done. And it was at that point where I was on my bed and I was, figuring out how I was going to do it. And I was just crying. I was crying alone, feeling just like thinking about how I was going to hurt my family and how they're going to find my body. And it's just going to be this mess. And, but I set out to do it. And as I was preparing to, I prayed for the first time. I just I felt this surge of desperation of like, isn't there any way? And I prayed out, I called out, like that my soul called out and cried out, like, God, if you're here, if you're real and you're listening, like I need to know that you're real, because I'm gonna end my life. I'm gonna end my life. And if you're God, then you know that I'm serious. And it was at that, right in that point, that there's this energy, this vibration that started outside of me. It was outside. It felt like it was filling my room. It was just like this intense vibration, and then that vibration came inside me, and it was otherworldly. Having done many substances before, I've been in different altered states. It was something completely different that I'd never experienced before. And it was this intense vibration. And at a certain point, the vibration was all there is. And I was like, oh my God, this is God. God's here within me. And my heart, I felt my heart expand and open up. And I just felt this intense peace and relief. And like, oh my God, like I'm home. Like I'm safe. Like God's real. And then I was communicating with God, like telepathically, energetically. And I was just praying, like, don't ever leave me. Don't ever leave me, God. Thank you. Thank you. Moving from feeling this like intense agony and hatred to like just feeling absolutely at peace and held and loved. I've described it before as being cradled in arms of cosmic love, just because it felt like this reunion, this coming home. And my heart was open, and I just knew, like, this is it. Like, this is the beginning of my life. This is why I'm here. And so just this energy of, I just made a vow to God. I was like, I'm gonna serve you for the rest of my life. I'm going to do whatever it takes to show up and serve and sing your praises and let everyone know that you are real, and that literally just feeling like so unlovable to like feeling so much love and so much care and so much compassion, and just feeling my heart now and being able to feel my heart. It was just like it was a revelation. It was a rebirth. It was a complete rebirth. And so it was earth shattering for me, to come from an atheistic framework. And like, I believed in like psychic phenomena and like, human potential. I was kind of interested in that stuff. But this was it. This was it. I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't on doing anything. It was just like, it was prayer, it was an answered prayer that I didn't believe was answerable. So it was like this huge relief.
What an experience to like Because that resonated with me so much, especially the shame part, getting to the deepest, darkest, like thinking that you're so unworthy of even existing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what it
and
felt like.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the flip side of that, when your experience in feeling God and knowing that God is universally and always loving, always compassionate, and he or she or it, what that permeates through all things.
Yes.
um Shame doesn't exist within its field, and we are it. So shame is something that our mind creates. It's not
Mm,
something that is real. It's something
yeah.
that we attach to. It's something that is not foundational to
Mm,
God and who we are.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And so that was the turning point of my life, and that was back in 2008. And I hit it hard. I just deleted all my contacts, just became kind of a hermit. Um, just withdrew my energy from always going out and trying to find something or feel okay, to just like coming back and really being deliberate now about my path. And now that I knew God was real, I was like, okay, and I'm here to serve God. God saved me for a reason. I don't know exactly why,
Mhm.
but it gave me a sense of greater purpose. I was like, okay, I'm here for something. I don't know what that is, but I'm here for God now, and God will show me.
Mhm.
God said He'd guide me, um, and of course, God is. So it's like I use he or she. But it is. God is, um, and so yeah, I just started, exploring different world religions and studying and really just expanding my mind to like different spirituality, and just went to different houses of worship to pray with them, to meditate, to experience
Wow. So
like
you kind of like tried all of them a little bit.
yeah, I felt like I needed to because I'm like, well, now that I know God is real, like all these religions, they're speaking about God. Of course, there's religions. Yeah, of course
Mhm.
there'd be religions. When people have that revelation to know that God is the source of our existence, and God is all loving, and that this is why we're here. Of course, we want to exalt and guide people deeper into God.
Mhm.
So I was like, there must be some truth in all of it. And so I just started going into different houses of worship and studying the doctrine, and kind of taking notes and taking what worked, and trying different practices. And that really expanded me to like what's possible, with spiritual practice. And so really, it's really deepened into meditation, and deepened into prayer and affirmations, and really spent like hours every day in spiritual practice, and spent
Wow.
more time in nature, and shut off the TV, stop reading magazines, stop watching porn, just like literally cleared my whole field of all the shit that was polluting it. And uh, that those 2 years were foundational. Was celibate, was just like really bringing my energy back, because I knew I needed to heal. I knew I needed to detox. I knew I had to. I had some work to do for all the damage that I had done previously unconsciously. And so was really looking at my life through the lens of everything's happening. God's guiding this whole process. And so looking always to show up and serve and love and be an example and expression of what God gave me in grace, and being in receiving that grace. And so, yeah, it was a really intense period of like, I'm here to become enlightened. I'm here to really go into the full path of self-realization. That was my goal after like disseminating or after moving through all the information and knowledge and all the different religions. That's what it came down to. I was like, okay, I'm here for self-realization. I'm here like all the other monks and these practitioners. As you go deeper on the spiritual path, like that's the whole thing, like to come into nirvana, to merge with God. And I love the band Nirvana. I didn't even know what nirvana really was until I started going deeper and deeper into spirituality. I was like, oh wow, that's exactly why we're here. We're here to self-realize. And that was a revelation in itself, like to know, like, and have a clear path. Okay, I'm on the path of self-realization, and there's stepping stones that we need to, I don't need to focus on that. I just need to know that that's the end goal.
Mhm.
but there's like, I had to focus on the next step and maybe, you know, have an awareness of the couple steps ahead, but just like the next step, the next step, the next step. And it just kept on building and building as I kept on listening to the intuitive guidance and receiving revelation in prayers and dreams and, you know, practicing my psychic abilities. So it was really this beautiful and fun and challenging period of like preparing myself for God, like to be fit to serve, you know, because I knew I was here to serve. And I knew that I had some gifts. I had some things to share with people.
Yeah.
I was working in IT, you know, since I was in high school. I've been working in IT. So I was working in IT for like 15 years. But I just knew I had a deeper purpose. And so God was guiding me every step of the way. Went to all the different healers, and shamans, and really taking in information and applying it to my life and just continuing to optimize, and at the same time working with the familial trauma, holding space for, you know, my sister ended up ending her life when she, a year after I had my awakening.
Wow.
And so that was really hard because I was spending a lot of my energy too to like try to I wanted to bring my sister into the awareness that I had, that like God is real, God loves us, and you can heal this, you can heal. And she was, you know, hearing voices, and she was in it deep into the darkness. And so, but I was like, with God, anything's possible. And I just had this strong sense of like, I'm gonna save my sister. And God showed me in a dream, in a vision dream of basically we are on a building together, my sister and I, and she jumped off the building, and I jumped off after her. And then I didn't die. What happened was like I transported into like this other location where I didn't have a body, and I was stuck though. I was like stuck now, and I was like, oh no, like I have to do this again. You know, it was just like the clear awareness of like, oh no, like life doesn't go on. And when you commit suicide, it's like it's awful because, you know, you just got to go through it again now. And like, you know, there's no bypassing the steps and stages of growth. So anyways, that was huge. That was a huge challenge for our family. And I would say my mother and my sister never recovered from it actually. But I tried to take us to family therapy and really tried hard to hold space for my family. And it was carrying a lot of the weight of my family on my shoulders. So yeah, just kept on listening, kept on following the whispers of God and the guidance that I'd receive in my meditations, and just kept on going and trusted that I was being prepared for more.
What did you learn? If sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all
I'm
good. Thank
intrigued
you.
by this because like the biggest piece for me was healing my trauma. Like trauma healing was so important for me, especially the things that occurred in my childhood.
Oh yeah.
What were some of the things that you did to help heal your trauma?
Well, a big one for me was therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It was therapy, you know, and I think therapies, if you can find a good therapist, it's like it's gold, because the healing comes from another person who's there with you to hold space for you to grieve, to feel, to guide you, you know, as like just an anchor to love. You know, that's really what it is. It's like the reparative relationship that happens when you're, you know, sharing your truth or sharing your experiences. And I shared mine, just like sharing my journey, and over time having them become a safe person, you know, because we can say and share our story, but it's all about being able to feel the depths of our pain in our story that allows that energy to move through, you know. And once we have that compassionate witness to hold that space, that's what creates the healing. You know,
Where you know there's no judgment there. It's just like you are able to pour it all out onto them.
Yeah.
They're able to hold space for it.
So I experienced a few different therapists. It wasn't like right off the bat. I went to different therapists, and I did group therapy, which was revolutionary as well, because it's just like you have the group dynamic and the stuff that comes up. And then I did training. I was on the path to become a psychologist and therapist. And in my undergraduate program, I had the opportunity to lead growth groups, these like kind of existential groups, which were pretty much like therapy groups. They didn't frame it that way because we wouldn't be able to do that, but it was supervised by psychologists who are also professors, and structured in such a way that it gave us an experience. And these are people that were on the path to become social workers and psychologists and therapists, and so it really gave us all an opportunity to learn how to facilitate and how to heal and all these different pieces. And I did that for 2 years, which was just huge. And I met one of my first mentors in that program, Stuart Bloom. And he was a pivotal man on my path who really kind of held this father, grandfather archetype, and was there to hold space for me to heal a lot of my father wounding. And just he was the first man that I fully trusted, like an older man, an older Jewish guy. And he was just always just loving me. And I didn't believe him at first. I just, like, you say that, I was thinking, like, you say that to everybody, yeah. But he's always, you're a star, you have so many gifts. And just like, I didn't take it in. I wasn't able to take it in. But at a certain point, he broke through, and I just I was letting the love in. And it was just like, oh my God, like, this is a really important person to me. And to like care and be like, to feel that vulnerable sense of like, looking up to someone that I highly respected and loved, really. And to feel that love was priceless. It shifted my whole reality. So I'd say, like, yeah, just the healing relation. And I explored a lot of different healings, but I'd say foundationally, like, it was therapy, it was group therapy, and it was also my own process of becoming a healer. Yeah, becoming a
I want to get into that next, actually. So at what point did you become a alchemizer of masculinity?
Yeah, that was back around the time of Standing Rock, when the Sioux were battling against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And do you remember Standing Rock when that was popping off? Yeah, of course. It was like kind of a flashpoint in our collective where we were like, hey, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? To endanger their water supply and build
We have something sacred here that is land for these people that is healing, and then we have corporate consumerism, the machine coming in.
Yeah, man. So there's a call put out from the elders at Standing Rock for there to be men's and women's prayer circles. And I was invited to co-host a men's prayer circle at my friend's, my brother at the time's studio. And this was my first experience in an all men's space, well, at least in an all men's kind of healing space. And I was able to weave in what I'd been studying, what I had studied in on the path of becoming a psychologist. I was able to weave in what I had learned in facilitating groups into this all men setting. And it was just so powerful without the energy, the feminine energy of a woman. It kind of just shifted what was possible and where men were able to go. And it just showed me in that, just all the tears and all the healing that would happen in that first group blasted me open to like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. And I knew that there was gold there, and that this is a part of my journey, but it wasn't like, this is it. It wasn't at that point. It wasn't like, this is the only thing. It was like, okay, cool. I'm going to add this to like kind of the stuff that I do. I was doing a lot of different things at the time. But that was really the pathway in. And so it was really happenstance of receiving this invitation and answering that call and showing up and really having the opportunity to apply my gifts and hold the sacred space for men. And I really think that that's important in this time, is to really have it framed in such a way where we're not taking God out of it, that God is at the center of it, that the sacred is, the foundation of it, because how can we really come back home to the truth of who we are and why we're here if we're just like framing things in such a way that leaves God out, right? I've heard that it's described as ego stands for edging God out. And it's true, because there's like a little energy about God and spirit, with a lot of people in the mainstream, even though it's always been there in religion and stuff. There's definitely this like dichotomy, right, where God's not associated with a lot of positive energy necessarily to a lot of people. A lot of people have been wounded by religions. A lot of people have a lot of, especially critical thinking people. Of course, you have these religions where there's all these abuses taking place, children,
a lot of dogma, blindly believe that.
Yeah. So of course, it has, gave God a bad name in many ways. But that's humans. That's us.
Yes.
Let's not confuse like the source of all creation and the force of unconditional love with our man-made misalignments and wounds and traumas that perpetuate. So
When you started diving into each of, sorry, I know this is like completely
no, it's all good.
You started diving into each of the religions. What were some things that you discovered, like positive takeaways? Because like we've talked about this before, where now I grew up, and this is loose, as an evangelical Christian, but like it was not like we just went to church on Easter and Christmas. At home, my dad was beating my ass, like nothing, like it was never, you know what I mean? It was never good. But there is so much, like now in this point where I'm able to just like look at everything, right? I can see that there's so much deep truth to each of the religions. What did you find and sort of like diving into each of them?
That generally, in most cases, the religions were set in motion by someone that either had attained divinity or had experienced a massive awakening or received direct revelation from God. And that was the impetus to to create a pathway for other people to like learn like why we are here and what this is all about, right? We're here as souls to grow in these different bodies and to expand the essence of who we are as like spirit sparks, right? We're like fractals of the Most High, and we get to be in these material bodies. I'm going on this pathway from mineral to plant to animal to human, and over the course of many incarnations, because that was a part of my study and research, was like reincarnation. That fascinated me endlessly, especially the ones where the children would remember their past lives and they tied together.
Some of those are so crazy to read, but it's like it is self-evident to me. Like it is like it is.
Oh, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. Yeah, it's all there for sure. For anybody that has an open mind, they'll find their pathway in. But yeah, really, it was that was a big piece. Is that generally there was an avatar or a person that had an awakening that really set in motion this organized religion. And they weren't planning on creating a new religion. They're just like sharing, right? They're just sharing their enlightenment. They're just like, God was just, they were God embodied now in a human body, and whether that was their mission, they came into this as a divine being, or they became divine in this lifetime, or their last lifetime or not. It's interesting to note the patterns of how people organize around them. There's a quick organization that builds from their revelation, because when you have God embodied, it's undeniable. And people can deny it when you're in hell, when you're in ego. Of course, we're going to crucify you. Then we're going to.
If people are already seeking inwardly or upwardly, they resonate with that already. So like people just flock to it immediately.
Exactly. It calls in a lot of energy, because when you're God embodied, you just alter time and space and draw in so much energy. And so you see these avatars throughout time, like Krishna and Yeshua, and many others. There's so many, many of them are not very known, but it's beautiful, especially like the Hinduism and Eastern. I really resonate with a lot of the Eastern religions, because it's still real. There's still this, like, it's still alive in many respects, like dancing and just feeling the spirit flow, like with the Hare Krishnas even, and just like chanting Hare Krishna, and then really getting to a point of like really intense bliss of like just chanting Krishna's name. And so just like God is at the center of all the different religions, and it can be an open door, closed door, depending on where you're at in your own evolution, right? But it was interesting to note this pattern of like, okay, there was someone that achieved this revelation or achieved enlightenment, and then that was like this wellspring which poured forth truth, healing, so much for humanity, just giving, this outpouring of just giving. And even some of the religions having, the creation stories and like seeing the parallels in all the different religions. So that was really fun for me, is noticing all the connections, that
That's so rad.
it's so fascinating to see that. And like, oh my God, like Allah, Jesus, Buddha, they're all one. Like they're all one at the core of it. It's one. And it's just like, okay, of course you're gonna have Buddha in this place in this time, because that's the avatar, the teacher that they needed to be able to connect. And of course you had Yeshua, because he came and overturned, the Pharisees and the religion at that time, because it was it was outdated. It was no longer living. The living word was, was dead at that point. And so he came in to bring new life. And you see it happening in Lao Tzu, all these different ones. And even like, lesser known, well, I won't say lesser known, but Carlos Castaneda wrote about his apprenticeship with Don Juan Matus. And this was huge on my path. But these books are like as valuable as the Bible. Like he detailed his apprenticeship with Don Juan Matus, who is a sage who attained enlightenment, who reached the highest, and he communicated so much gold to Castaneda, who was his apprentice. Castaneda wasn't able to make it all the way, but he still, he still brought forth so much good for people to find. So yeah, it was just really cool seeing just different sources of the same truth spoken in different ways. The law of one is one of them, right? Yeah. And it's beautiful just to see that at the core of all of it, there's a cohesive pathway for the most part of how to become embodied, how to become God embodied, because that's why we're here, to follow in the footsteps of these divine beings who are once human, or at least, in a material body. I don't, who knows? Yeah. It might have been on other planets, who knows, all that stuff. But, what we do know is that's the path we're here to follow. Mm-hmm. And it's the path of love. It's the path of righteousness. It's the path of willing to die to our ego for the greater good, right? Yeah. So it's only a sacrifice to the ego, but not to the soul. For the soul, this is why we're here. Yes. We're here to bring forth the truth. We're here to speak the good word. We're here to help people remember, like, hey, you're another reflection. You're a mirror. Like, we're all mirrors for each other. Mm-hmm. You're a spirit spark. You're like the potentiality of God, of being fully embodied. You are that. We are that. Yes. And there's a path. There's a path. There's a path. And it's interesting, and it's I think a reflection of just how far we've fallen as humanity, of coming to a point now in our reality where up is down and down is up, and the people that are leading and have the most influence in the world are like, the antithesis of God in many ways. Yeah. But it's also a blessing. So I'm not like looking at it dualistically too. I'm like, that's exactly what we need to move forward as humanity.
I was just about to ask this too. Do you view your trauma, like having healed it and where you are now, do you view your trauma differently than you did, obviously, when you were immersed in it?
Oh yeah, man. Of course. It was that all that happened to me because of me, right? Like, that was all the shit that I set in motion in past lives, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Like, everything is a blessing, no matter how seemingly painful it is, no matter how difficult it is literally the highest expression that we get to experience. And it's the highest expression of love. God is perfection unfolding, right? And so we always get the highest expression that we've earned, that we've cultivated from past lives and set in motion in our karma, and also with every choice that we make in our day-to-day, with all the thoughts we think and all the feelings that we feel, literally creating an instant feedback loop for our reality. And so when that, my shit got stolen, there's a part of me that was like, like really like.
Give context, his shit just got stolen like this last week, right?
Yeah. It was humbling. It was my cell phone, my wallet, my cash. my laptop. So like all my intellectual property was, all my stuff, and so like I feel the attachment when I think about it. I'm like, that's there's like stuff there, like my writing, some of it's not backed up, but it showed me like my attachment, first of all, to stuff. I'm like, okay, that's not great. I've pretty much moved through most of it now. But that happened to me for so many reasons. I'm learning so many lessons from it. I'm like receiving a lot from it now. I like my friend, like, hey, use my laptop. My friend Preston, like, hey, yeah, have this money. Like just people just showed up. And so it's an opportunity for me to receive, an opportunity for me to see where I wanted vengeance. Like I wanted to, I wanted to get those guys, and so showing me, like, there's that saying that kept on popping up in my awareness after it happened. And I'm paraphrasing poorly, probably. If a man comes and steals your purse or your wallet, give him your coat as well, or like if you get struck on one cheek, turn the other cheek. It's like this deep spiritual truth at a certain point of our path, where it's like we don't return like for like. We don't, not even energetically, not even emotionally. So it's like to have and I got there recently. It was like, yeah, those people, they're off running amok, they're stealing stuff, they bought stuff on my credit card, and they're like, they're going to have to experience the pain of the actions they're setting in motion. And they're unconscious, they're unconscious, and they're and I was there before, I was doing dirt. And so who am I to judge and to be angry at this, when like it's reflecting to me where I need to grow and where I can expand my love and compassion. And
what I love that you said there, that you said you like had a moment of you wanted to go get those guys, which is like
many moments.
Exactly. And that's the whole point, is it's like there's a tendency for people with a spiritually inclined mindset to just like stuff pain down, stuff traumatic experiences down, and be like, oh, it's okay, it's all love and light. It's not like that, man. Like we need to feel those feelings of darkness and of rage. Like I was so mad at myself the other day, I went to go box for a little bit, and I've like knocked the thing over that I was boxing against because I was punching it so hard because I was so fucking mad. And it's like we need to experience some of that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And there's I tried to get my, we traced the license plate, went to the person's house that it was registered to, and we were ready, like my brother and I, we were ready to get our shit back, get my shit back, basically, by any means necessary, kind of, not like any means, but
I get what you mean.
Gonna get my shit back,
It's different when you say that versus like Al Capone or something like that.
So yeah, and it ended up being a stolen car, and the guy had his car stolen, and he filed a police report. It's this older guy, and we just like kind of just commiserating, like, oh, you got your shit. Yeah, he's like, well, at least it wasn't your car, so like it's like, yeah, look at the bright side.
Yeah.
But I had to try. I had to go for it, and I do strongly believe that it's imperative that for us, and I say us as in those who are tuned into this frequency right now, listening to this, other leaders and other people who are here to steward the now paradigm and the golden age that's coming. Well, what does golden age consciousness look like, and how is it expressed, and how do we show up as men who are embodying that and bringing that through? What does the sacred masculine look like in this case? How do they respond? And so my work was really moving through the shadows and the desire for vengeance and the anger, and just allowing myself to feel it without shaming myself. I don't shame myself because I've come from darkness and hell. So it's like, it is what it is. Like, and I see as it's unfolding, I'm like, I've deepened my connection to my family, and so many good things have happened since that happened. And it's still unfolding. It's still unfolding, you know, but it really puts the onus on me to continue doing the work, because it's ongoing. The work is ongoing, to allow myself the freedom to feel the emotions as they arise without stuffing them, like you said, allowing them to move through me, because that's what it feels like. They're like passing storm clouds, right?
Yeah.
I'll just get moments driving and I'll remember something that was on my thing that I won't be able to get back. And I'll be like, bastards, you know? And I'll be like, okay, all right.
Okay,
all right.
good. Got that out. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, riding these waves.
Especially like processing it in such, because it's so necessary to process it, man, but process it in such a way that you are not burdening other people with your energy or putting it off or projecting on someone else. Like doing
I've been good with that. Yeah, I've been good with that. Like, I'm definitely not displacing my energy onto others, you know, and my wife Devon has been so good, just loving, just like, oh, they're there, and she gets the higher too. So she's like, you know, this is for you, and it's an inconvenience. It's more than an inconvenience. It's a letting go of attachment.
Yeah.
You know, there's loss in
such
it.
a lesson, right? Like it's ultimately a lesson for you.
Yeah. And it showed me how attached I was to my stuff, like my laptop, and it showed me like where, you know, I knew it happened for a reason. I remember back to Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you read that yet?
No, I have it on my shelf because my wife wanted to buy it. I've watched the documentary on him though, so that's step one.
The book's great. Yeah, I hear you. Anyways, there's a story in that where Yogananda doesn't lock his house. He forgets to lock. He's like, he thought about it. He's like, oh, I'm okay. You know, he's like in direct communication with God, and he's like deep on the path, you know, and God guided this guy that was really hungry into his house, walks through his house, and takes these, I believe they're cantaloupes that he had under his bed. Yogananda had under his bed these cantaloupes. And so he guides the guy to like steal these cantaloupes from him. And Yogananda gets back. He's like, oh no, like someone came in here and stole my stuff. And then like, why, God, what happened? What did I, you know? And God was like, you know, I did that because even though I'm here for you, you need to do your part. And so like, I remember leaving, this isn't the first time, but I like left my wallet and I left my phone because I was going to go work out. So I was like, I'm just gonna leave it here, you know, but it was just like a lesson of like, on that little level, practical level of just like, do whatever I can. Like I should have just taken my shit, even though it was a little bit of an inconvenience or whatever, just like take it with me, you know, like simple as that. Like don't leave a backpack with all my shit in it, like in the car, like simple stuff that like, I was like, well, you know, I'm on the path. Like maybe there's some justification of like, I'm protected and it's all good. Maybe a little bit of an entitlement there. Right. And it's like just a humbling, like, no, like do what you can do. Always.
Still requires action on our part.
Always. And don't even think like that, like just because you're serving and you're here, that I'm going to give you some extra, like, you know, that's like an entitlement. And so it's like a humbling of like, got it. Okay, God.
No, this is a good piece on, you know, like the secret, the like, oh, if you think about it, it'll come to you. I hate that because it is so, it leaves out the part of action. Like it is aligning thoughts and feelings, but also the action behind it, taking deliberate action towards something that you are wanting to bring into being, right?
Yeah. I mean, depending on our state of consciousness, we can, you know, really harm ourselves and others with the law of attraction material, because without the context of God and our ethical imperative of like the pathway to God. And like, that's why what I loved about religions is there's clear frameworks and laws that a lot of them are legit. Like there's some shit that's like, okay, this has been distorted, but you know, like simple stuff like the golden rule, right? Love others as you would want to be loved. Do unto others as you would want to be done to you. Like things like that. It's like just the simplest stuff. Love your neighbor, right? Like love your neighbors, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. Like this is foundational. Like this is it. You have the whole path now. Love your enemies. If you can love your enemies, you're free. You're good. Like, you know, and like that's how strong God's love is. God's love, you know, shines like the sun, right, upon like the good and the evil alike. God's loving everybody all the time. And of course that love expresses itself differently. Like this love was expressed to me by all my shit getting stolen. My ego self is like, fuck these guys, da 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 da. And then like, but I knew the whole time, I'm like, okay, this is for me, God, thank you. I'm not there in the gratitude yet, but I'm like, I know that that's where my work is to get to, like just grateful and receiving the blessings in it. And I'm receiving them. It's slow, it's happening. But ultimately it's like the simplest of truths, the simplest of like, having the ethical imperative to like practice like these, like I'd say more esoteric and advanced spiritual, accessing these spiritual technologies within us, because we are multidimensional beings. And so, yeah, the law of attraction is real, definitely real, but we don't want to frame it like, oh, the universe is a cosmic vending machine and just like get whatever you want, fulfill all your baser desires, because what that might happen, and it's going to cause you pain, because you're going to realize it, and a lot of people are doing black magic with it too, trying to get things. And it's like, when you use it from a materialist or egoic standpoint, oh man, it leads to a lot of suffering, like for whoever's involved in that, praying for someone, or like using the law of attraction to pull someone into your life, that's not in alignment, for your own ends.
Like, so ultimately, does it align with the essence of God within you?
Exactly. Yeah. Does it really align? And that's part of our soul's progression, right? Because we've all been here a different amount of times. It's a really diverse and dynamic environment that we're in. And so I think that's one of the big things I've kind of grown through, is not to have any judgment for where someone's at in their journey. Of like, hey, yeah, this person is doing the best they can, given their state of consciousness, given the what they've cultivated in past lives, given their energy body, given their intellect, because the intellect is something that takes a long time to cultivate and develop. You have people like Nikola Tesla, and you have people that are born into bodies where they're mentally retarded, and unable to do anything for themselves. So there's a huge contrast, a huge spectrum of evolution that we need to really recognize. And so there's people that are like sheep. And I get that. I get the frustration. I think we talked about this briefly, but it's like we can't fall into the trap of hating on or judging people for where they're at,
Yes. Like, that's so funny that you brought that up, because I get so frustrated with people in the quote truth seeker or health freedom or like natural health minded community when they call other people sheep, and are so aggressive about it and so shaming about it, because just like you said, it's the understanding. Like, had I never been through what I went through, I probably would be a quote sheep as well, right? Like,
well, probably not. Well, I'd say that's soul age, where you've been here before and you came into your trauma to work through karma that you set in motion in the past with your choices that were not aligned with love, right?
Yeah. So now, but either way, it's like the point is the looking at the people who are like, that's their path. And ultimately, like, if you want to affect change in them, first off, embody the betterness that's like more attractive to them, but then also have compassion and just empower them to reconnect with themselves rather than shaming them for being a sheep, right? Like,
yeah, when you're, it's just like being called something or being put in a box, like, how's that going to lead to positive change for someone? And I don't want to say, unequivocally, but for the most part, people don't like to be shamed or judged or put in a box or labeled as, especially as something that's like kind of makes them less than human, right? You're like, you're an unthinking sheep. You're just, and I get it, because there's people that are just angry, right? There's people that like see the big picture and they're just so disillusioned. Like, and I think that comes from not having a strong connection to God. Because when you have a strong connection to God, you understand the interplay of our free will, of collective karma, and of like the unfolding of billions of souls, on a planet trying to work through our humanness to become divine. And that this is in human terms, this is just like, this lifetimes, but from God's standpoint, this is just a blink of an eye. This is just one planet out of an infinite number of planets where there's life growing. Like, we don't understand the grand scope of how massive God is and what this is, from our limited human standpoint. And so I get it when you're
like what we were talking about on the phone the other day. It's like we are both everything and so important, and also like we are nothing. We are minuscule and so
Yeah.
relatively
Yeah.
unimportant at the same time. It's like the paradox of the two. We're both. We're both
We
and.
must hold both. We
Yes.
must hold both. You know, we must hold both if we are here to, you know, if we're at that phase in our evolution to really actualize our beingness, our you know, to come into self-realization, which is like we are all God. Treat everybody as you would treat God, and we'll be good forever. You know, we'll be in the golden age. You know, and
That's
it takes
man.
time. It takes
Where
time.
where does the masculine play into that too? Like what to you? I had this conversation. I think I might have said it on another podcast episode. I've had so many conversations lately, I forget where it was. But there's this like what the masculine was, like what the accepted version of masculinity was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was not the proper version of masculinity. But the very I left and right does not matter, but just for the sake of clarity, the very like left-leaning version of emasculating, like taking away masculinity, is also not the correct version of masculinity in my mind of what masculinity looks like. So with that context for you, what does it mean to be a sacred masculine human?
Yeah. Well, I feel like first of all, it requires us to be responsible for more than just ourselves. Of course, it starts with ourselves, yes. To just be fully, absolutely 100% responsible for all of it, all of our life and all of our impact on life. Let's start there. That's it. That's the beginning of all of it. Let's be fully responsible for how we impact life, how our words, our actions, our energy impacts the world around us, impacts nature, impacts women, impacts children, impacts our community, impacts you know, the ecology. Like, let's take full responsibility for how we show up in life and impact life. That's it. Let's start there, because, you know, there's all these, you know, I get it. There's, you know, nuance, you know, to what we are as men. But if we can't even get to a point of just taking full and final responsibility for our life and our impact upon life, then what does all that even matter? Yeah. You know, it's very simple. We're responsible for ourselves, and we're responsible for being an exemplar of what God is, of the creative principle, right? Of the creative, expansive, expressive principle of what God is. And you know, that can be expressed in a variety of ways, but let's just start with being a father, being like moving with the father archetype of seeing other children as our children, of seeing other women as you know, queens, as holding people in a high regard, like for starting just with how we perceive, starting with our perception, you know, of not tainting life and other people with our own shit, you know. So taking responsibility for working through our stuff and showing up in a generative way rather than a destructive or immature parasitic taking way, you know, which masculine has done for a long time. Just fucking take what we want and discard, you know, without repercussion or consequence, because we're men, right? So I think it's just we're being called to a higher level of responsibility before our families, before our communities, and before God. And so coming back to the core of our responsibility to God, to show up the best we can and to continue growing and doing the work to embody what it is to be God here on earth. How does God move and act and speak and live? And like, that's my guide, you know? And I come back to that. I'm humbled all the time, man. I'm seeing where I fall short all the time. It's a continual burning away of the illusion, of the programming, of the trauma, of the pain. You know, it's deep. And so I see it in real time with my son. I see it in how how connected I can be to my wife, or disconnected, you know, when I get shut down or whatever it might be, you know, I'm in my head or distracted. And so it's just really calling forth a deeper presence, a deeper responsibility, and our creativity flows from that place. Once we've taken full responsibility for our life and are doing the work, are actively in process, like, okay, like this is all a feedback loop, like for us to see our life, all the people we come across, everything that happens to us is an instant feedback loop for us to grow and learn from, right? And so knowing that as men who are oftentimes are oftentimes physically stronger, not always, of course, and who just have a natural aptitude to be able to lead and create structures and systems and processes, and to also, we have this strong penchant for adventure. And that's not to say that never any of this is to say women don't have this or
No,
this,
absolutes.
you know what I mean? Exactly. The masculines and feminines and masculine, the yin yang, it's a perfect balance. But really coming to like the original blueprint of what masculinity is. And I believe that, there's everybody's soul somewhere on the spectrum, right? Just to leave it as neutral as possible without judging or saying this is right or this is wrong. Yeah. Like what's happening on Earth right now is just a reflection of where our collective consciousness is at. That's where we're at. So I see that the sacred masculine, what I see really as the foundation for us as men in this time is to be able to show up as protectors, as safe, to create safe spaces, to be a safe person so that women can come and feel safe to feel whatever they feel around us. Mm-hmm. And so that they feel held and protected by us. And there's a big conversation like, oh, like we don't need you to protect us, but like, really, this is a part of who we are. Like we're protectors, we're aware of our environment and surroundings, and we're looking ahead and we're planning, and we're seeing how we can mitigate any potential danger and safeguard our future, for our children, our families, our communities. And so I really see that as being an important piece for the masculine to deepen into in this time, is to prepare ourselves, beginning with taking full and final responsibility for all of our life and everything that comes our way, not displacing it anywhere else, not blaming anyone else, but just working through our own shit so we can see clearly, so we can have clear perception to see people and life as it really is. And it's always a blessing. It's always perfection unfolding. And once we have done that, then we can really step into what we are uniquely called to as a soul, whether that's creating medicine in whatever capacity, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be energetic, it could be spiritual, it could be anything, but just basically bringing in new ways, which are really ancient ways of being, that life can thrive in. Like we are here and we've gone to war against each other for so long because that's our collective karma. Because we've fallen, because we see each other as enemies when we're living from our ego. And that's a part of the process of coming out of primitivism. And we're in animal bodies at one point. We were eating each other. You see this in some tribes that are still cannibalistic. You see the progression of life as it grows into different bodies and as it evolves. And so we have these animal drives, right? Kill, fuck, feed, these just like these impulses that keep the human species and that are just built in to keep us moving. But now, as soon as we can think, and as soon as we have self-awareness, now we have a greater responsibility, right? Now our path isn't to just meet the basic minimum, just to meet our survival needs. It's to expand and support others, right? To be able to meet their deeper needs, to create the safe space on Earth so that people can thrive and flourish, and we can, bring back the golden age, which it's going to happen. Like it's already been written. This is God's will. And then part of that looks like, a lot of falling away of that which isn't of God, and that which is not supportive of the golden age, and that which might be the antithesis of the golden age. And yeah.
Sorry, would you call what we're experiencing right now collectively, without getting into too much detail, would you refer to it as maybe a collective dark night of the soul?
I've referred to it as that. I've referred to it as a collective dark night, as a collective soul retrieval. I've heard it described in different ways. And I do believe that this is like the process of composting. You know, that's kind of happening. You know, stuff, the trash, the garbage, the old discard, it's being composted. We're being composted right now. Humanity is, and our systems and structures will be as well. It's all gonna, it's inevitable. You know, we can't escape our collective karma from, you know, all the violence and wars and stuff. We can't escape that. It has to play itself out just by universal law. It's going to happen. And so as men, we need to show up and train and prepare ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to come into full alignment with the highest ethical precepts that we're here, that God has blessed us with through all the different religions and all the different spiritual teachings. It all boils down to love each other. To love each other, to love the earth, to celebrate God. It's so simple, right? Yeah. And where the work is as soon as it's not simple. As soon as we encounter a situation or a person where it suddenly becomes a story about love, right? Like, you know, our heart gets shut down, or we become just calculating, or like, oh, I don't, you know, well, lean in. It's time to lean in. It's time to train ourselves and prepare ourselves for the golden age. And I don't know if I'm going to live to see it. Who knows? I think where there's going to be a transition period. It might be a couple generations. I hope I live
you'll be back to see it though.
Yeah, definitely. I trust I will. Yeah. I trust that I will. So I will see it someday. I think it's going to take some time. I think these things take a lot longer than people kind of, there's a lot of like we're going to go 5D and like, you know, we're, you know, I don't kind of subscribe to that, because I don't believe in automatic salvation. I don't believe that there's an instant collective realization. There's a quickening, and we can get codes and we can get lessons and teachings and everything that can accelerate our evolution, but we got to do the work. Ultimately, we have to make the choices that bring us deeper and deeper into what we are. So yeah, we're in that, man.
So I've kind of jumped around this because like questions will pop up in my head. I'm like, damn, I want to ask him that. So my original one was like how you became an alchemizer of masculinity. How did that lead into Sacred Sons? So you went to with that experience.
Oh yeah.
When did that lead into like you developing Sacred Sons? Because like,
yeah,
I've talked to you about this several times. And I'm like, dude, I want in somehow, some way. I want to be involved in it. So
yeah, man.
How did that lead to that?
Yeah, so
if you could describe Sacred Sons too for the people listening.
Yeah, Sacred Sons is a brotherhood devoted to masculine alchemy and really honoring the sacred, you know, really orienting around the sacred. So bringing the sacred back to men's work. Not to say that it's been missing, but you know, it's been a long time coming where men of all faiths, of all lineages, can have a space where we can be seen in our uniqueness, and yet the deep awareness is that we are all brothers, that we are all men together in this time for a greater purpose. And so, you know, calling in and training leaders to become, you know, leaders in their families, to become better leaders, better lovers, to become leaders in their community, or to, you know, really actualize their purpose. So it's really I'd say an accelerator, a hyper accelerator. This brotherhood is of preparation, to prepare ourselves on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to be fit for the changes that we're now in right now, the challenges that we're now facing as humanity. So yeah, it's really a brotherhood rooted in the sacred and honoring of the sacred and honoring of the divine feminine, and knowing that we are more than these bodies. You know, we're more than these stories and lies that we've been told that who we are as men. And it's really like about our direct experience. This is about our own gnosis of who we are and what we are. And when we come into a space with, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 150 men, and we're really anchoring it with the foundation of the sacred, you know, there's so many blessings that come through. There's so much, I'd say, ancestral and divine support to help us move through the deep traumas, to help us like see the mirrors, and just like the synchronicity that happens at these gatherings is phenomenal. So really a place to like really take the best from all of us, to see like, hey, none of us are perfect, but that's our path, is the path to become perfect. Like, and I believe that is possible. We say nobody's perfect. Well, God is perfect. God is perfection unfolding, and so are we. You know, as long as we choose to embody it, choose to do the work to do that, right? And so that's what Sacred Sons is. It's a place to become more, a place to realize our responsibility as men in these times, and a place to train and do the work to become what we're here to be.
I love that so much, dude. God.
You're a sacred son, brother.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm in. Okay. So where did the idea come from though? So like after Standing Rock, that whole thing, and then
Yeah. Well, it was actually, it started being born. I would say, yeah. So that really broke me open. That first prayer circle, that all men's prayer circle, showed me the power of the men's space. And then I was in another group that was it was Cosmic Consciousness was the name, and we are organizing consciousness events where we'd have like, you know, panel talks about like plant medicines and healing and different things. And we'd also have like meditation and vegan food and yoga and different things that would like really just kind of attract this certain archetype, you know, people that are open to this new vibration, right? And so, yeah, I was in that group for a few years, and it was towards the tail end of my time in that group where I started doing men's circles there, you know, and it was just, I witnessed how powerful it was to really bring that through to larger groups. And so, you know, 32 men and then 64 men, and you know, facilitating these large groups lights me up. I love facilitating. I love holding space. It's why, a big part of why I'm here. And you know, just after this, it was basically 2 days after Kyra was born. I was facilitating a divine masculine or sacred masculine circle at the park at one of these cosmic consciousness gatherings.
You guys were in California at the time, right?
California, yep. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's where we did most of our gatherings. We did one in New York, but yeah, pretty much all around California. And 64 men showed up to this group, this gathering. 64 men showed up to specifically the sacred masculine piece, and we are just doing incredible work. The men were just ready, you know. We were crying and healing and sharing and laughing together, just healing together. And it was just a large group of these beautiful men, you know, and we were all together. And I was like, wow, it was so powerful because, you know, my son was just born, and I had this moment of just like seeing them like as his uncles. It was just like this, like, oh wow, like I'm doing the most important work I could be doing right now in helping these men heal, and helping these men face themselves and choose to become more of who they are. For my son, you know, there's a direct impact, you know, because men have so much impact on life, just as women do, but in a different way, you know. So it was really that really kind of seeded that. And I said a prayer after the gathering, after witnessing so many tears and so many hugs and healing. And it showed me that I have a knack for facilitating large groups. And so I was like, okay, God, if you want me to do this, if this is my path forward and you want me to commit fully to this men's work, to holding space for men and really honoring the sacred masculine, then help me find a place that I can start doing weekly men's circles at. And you know, shortly thereafter, my brother Franco hit me up and said, hey man, I got some extra space in my tattoo studio. We're expanding. And so if you ever want to lead it, you know, do anything like groups or events or whatever, just, you know, let me know. I was like, okay, here we go. So I just I started from there, started doing weekly men's circles. Shervin was a part of that. Shervin, and you know, we started it, and you know, he went on his path, I went on my path. It kind of diverged for a period, but it was really the beginning. That was the beginning. And then my idea was like, I'm going to invite different facilitators to co-facilitate different groups with me, you know. And I ended up inviting Adam Jackson, who I had met first met at a Nako concert, but then kind of linked up with him and at this tri-family gathering where I facilitated a circle, and also met my other co-founder there, Jason. at that same tri-family gathering that we were all there at. And so the seeds were sowed back then, but then as I started leading these weekly men's circles, that kind of crystallized, inviting Adam and Jason in. And it just kind of built from there, where like Devana was up at Spirit Weavers one day when I was leading a men's circle. And so it was just me. She was up there with Cairo, with like 800 women. They're at this like, huge women's gathering. They do 800 women one weekend, and then next weekend's like 800 women. So it's like that, like, over 1,000 women experiencing like ancestral crafts and women's circles and ceremony. And I felt so much joy for her that she got to go to this like beautiful gathering of women. And along with that joy, there was this deep grief I just felt as I was sharing to my group that she was up there, and I was like, oh, and it just that realization dawned on me that we don't have that as men. Like, at least I was not aware of that happening. Like, we don't have this large men's gathering happening. And that's a reflection of how divided we are as men, and how we've been stuck in this competition paradigm, and like seeing each other not as brothers, but as like enemies, right? And so, set out to do that, and express that to Adam, like, let's do our version of Spirit Weavers for men, and the rest is really history. So we set out to do the first Convergence, which is a large men's gathering. Jason had, been in men's work for a long time with the Mankind Project, so he had a lot of codes. And so we just came together, and it was this really beautiful synergy between us, where we all like just really grassroots and just built it, and Franco was huge in supporting that process, and allowing me space to continue facilitating these weekly men's circles that built the momentum. I created the IG. It used to be Sacred Masculinity before it became Sacred Sons, and I was just like, I was on it. And then,
what made you choose sons? Because I love it. Was it your children that made you choose that? Like your son Cairo?
We were thinking of different names, and we had different ideas. And then Adam was like Sacred Sons, because we knew sacred was a part of it. And it was like Sacred Sons. There's a ring to it. It just felt right. And it's like kind of like there's a built-in humility into that, because like, it's not like Sacred Kings or like, it's like, no, like we're Sacred Sons, we're sons of the Most High. And it's remembering that we're all sons of our fathers, regardless of who they are. Like, we are all sons. All men are sons, right? Not all men are fathers. Not all men are kings. Just like plainly put, not all men have achieved, these levels of archetypal embodiment, but we are all sons. We are all sons. And when we remember the sons and the healing that is being called for, then, our purpose gets a lot more clear, and what we need to do becomes a lot more clear. So it's really built in. The name is like kind of its own filter for men who, are you ready for this work? Are you really ready? Sacred Sons, are you ready for this? Like, and I believe that, we are all Sacred Sons, really. We are all, as men, Sacred Sons. We are all sons of the Most High. And when we can step into a space where we can really feel that and really remember that, and be seen and held and healed, it's revolutionary. It's revolutionary. And so it's so needed. And ultimately, though, it's just one piece, because we're just half of the equation as men. There's the women that have been waiting for a long time for men to get our shit together, so that we can meet them in all the pain that we've caused them, all the shit that we've perpetrated upon them. There's generations, thousands of years of brutalizing, burning, raping, pillaging, destroying women, and what women have built, and the family and children. So, we have work to do to meet them, and that's what we've been doing, is preparing. Like, that's what Sacred Sons is about, is really preparing ourselves to meet women and children in a good way again, in a sacred way. Meeting our families, and showing up as a pillar of masculine embodiment and strength and clarity and integrity, so that our women and children can thrive, so that our brothers and their families can thrive, and just really turning the tide, and setting in motion this rebirth that's happening of the golden age, right? And so it's starting. That's where it starts. And ideally, maybe this year, maybe later this year, we'll be doing masculine and feminine union work. So coming into bringing the sacred masculine, divine feminine together again, so that we can hold sacred space and do our work separately, and then come together and do our work together. So
That's amazing.
That's that's the high vision, and that's what, we've experienced it definitely in different forms, but that is the end goal, is to create sacred spaces where men and women can come together and do the sacred work and come back into union, and to heal, and to remember, like, we are all sons and daughters of the Most High, and love is the key. Like, love is the key. And how much deeper can we love? How much more are we willing to let go of the ego and the ideas of how things should be, to really embrace the changes that are now upon us. So yeah, man.
Dude,
we're there.
your whole story, just like the unfolding of how much darkness you were in, and just like you said, that you brought into being, now transmuting that, alchemizing that into being like this massive positive influence on the masculinity, which, men have, just like you said, brought upon so much destruction on this planet, right? And healing that and acknowledging that, but then for future generations and future sons, right? Like the sons that are coming up, bringing into being a man that is fully embodied of what it means to be sacred masculine, is just like the fucking coolest thing ever, dude. Like, it's so fucking so rad. So rad.
Yeah, there's nothing more. I mean, just remembering and bringing that remembrance back to the collective, that we are sacred, that we are here not as miserable, hopeless beings, at the mercy of a random chaotic universe. No, we are precious, children of God, and God loves us all so much beyond our comprehension. And whenever I'm open, my heart's open enough, and I'm in the present moment enough, to be immersed in God's love, I'm always in tears. I'm always just in deep tears of gratitude of just how much love is continually flowing through us and to us. But like, when our hearts aren't not open, we don't feel it. And we're just separate. We're just like separate. But like, when we're in our heart and we're able to perceive from our spiritual heart, oh my, this is wondrous. This is all divine. This is a miracle. We get to experience this miraculous existence. It's the best ever. And, there's that period of my path where I just wanted to sing that from the rooftops. And I realized, like, oh, wow. So many people don't get it. And then they'll write you off. They'll shoot the messenger. They're like, this guy's fucking a nut. Like, look at his long hair. They'll judge the shit out of you. And write you off to justify their own unwillingness to open up their hearts to love, their fears, their pains, right? They'd rather hold on. And there's no judgment, but there's just a lot of immaturity, I'd say. Like, there's many young souls on earth right now that are just kind of like, they go to where they're told and do what they're told, and think that, like, in very simplistic terms, right, of how they're programmed. Souls are programmed. If you're a young soul, you're going to have to live a couple lifetimes of experiencing some tough lessons of like, oh, okay, that was a bad idea to follow that guy that just said, follow me, without, any proof, or like without thinking about it, because I liked how his hair looked, or because I liked how he talked,
because everyone else was doing it. So, let's just do that. It makes sense.
Right. Well, everybody else is, right. And there's a point of our development where we want to belong. Where we just want to belong so badly. We want to fit
Isn't that so animalistic though, right? Because that's like going with the tribe. So it speaks to being a younger soul with, I use law of one terms, third density, like being a person who's aware. It speaks to a younger version of it because it's so animalistic, and there's still elements of us that want to be in a tribe, but to follow a tribe so blindly, that comes from a very animalistic second density mindset,
completely. And we reap what we sow. You know, every choice we make sets in motion, like it's like the collapsing timeline we you're talking about, you know, like every choice leads to a fork. It's just like, all right, you know, this way or this way. Okay, I chose that way. Well, that at some point that possibility is gone and you're just here. And so humanity's hurtling towards, you know, making all these choices, giving away our free will, giving away our power. And you know, I think people see the writing on the wall. Like we see the writing on the wall. We can see it. And I'm at peace. I've been at peace with it. Now it's just like, okay, just some preparation and get all the people that are on the fence, you know, the people that are open and like that need to hear it and need to receive it and need to remember it, who are here to be stewards of the now paradigm, the golden age. They'll get the call.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty late in the game right now. You know, we're at the 11th inning. 11th hour, 9th inning, you know,
could be 11th inning though too, winning the extra innings. We're in like 4th overtime of a basketball game.
Yeah, we're there. We're there. We really are. And you know, I think we talked about it briefly, but God's years, like a year of God, you know, is completely different from a human lifetime, right? There's like I think like 1 billion or 5 billion, some massive number for like one kalpa, which is like an in-breath and out-breath of God. And so we're at that point, from my perspective of you know, coming to this end point of the Kali Yuga. People, you know, believe different things around this, but this is my intuitive hit, and that everything I've researched and all my understandings. I feel like we really are at this point where there's not that much time left. There's not much time, there's no time to lollygag, to fuck around. This is it. This is it. We need to move forward with a sense of urgency, and love as much as we can, and heal as much as we can, and go all in on really being who we're here to be. So letting go of all the fucking, you know, worries about how people might perceive us, and just throwing caution to the wind to live our fullest expression. Right now is the time. Right now is the time to invest in ourselves. Right now is the time to really pull out all the stops to become who we're here to be, like fully, you know. And that looks like investing in the healing work. That means investing in your business, whatever it takes, whatever your growth edge is, do it. Go. It's time, you know.
Dude, I have 2 questions that I ask everyone at the end. I'm not even going to ask them with you because you've already answered them. I'll just say what I heard them. It's the whole conversation has been this. It's what is the purpose of life? Why are we here? You already touched on that for like 30 minutes. And then if you had 2 to 5 minutes to share an unfiltered, unedited message that was to be shared on all mainstream news platforms, obviously that's a complete hypothetical situation that probably wouldn't happen with anyone like us. But what would you say? I think what you just said there is that, man, like be yourself fully embodied and heal and love as much as you can. Like that's it, man. That's it.
Yeah. Regardless of what beliefs you might hold or what God you believe in or whatever, just come back to love. And that's a thing that people do need to work on, that we all need to work on, because love is a spectrum, right? There's conditional love, you know, and there's unconditional love, and there's a big, it's a long path to be able to embody complete unconditional love guided by wisdom, you know, and expressed in freely. You know, you look at some of the people that were really embodying it in many ways, like Yeshua, you know, like just being just fully embodied, God embodied. It just like the miracles that happen around them, the things that they bring, that they can bring people to life. But not only that, I think there's a saying, this is kind of going off kind of a tangent, that it needs to be spoken to. It's been spoken that the next Buddha is going to come in the form of the Sangha, in the form of the community. And so rather than looking for any one person as our savior, as the person to follow, it's important to look now to the expanded community. Like, who's our people? It's so important in these times to have our people. It really is. Like, family, living these isolated, in our isolated family units, like, houses upon houses, and you don't even really know your neighbors that well, kind of like, just like,
Crazy.
let that shit go. Like, meet your neighbors, get local, like meet your farm, go to your farmers market to really tap into where you're going to be right now. Like, that's an imperative. Like, connect with your neighbors, connect with the people around you, deepen and strengthen connections, start training your body, wherever you are. It doesn't even cost any money. Like, just start where you are with what you have. I think that's the most important thing. It's great if you have the money to invest in yourself and come out to Sacred Sons and do this work with us. Beautiful. But if you don't have the money, or the capacity for whatever reason, start right where you are. Because where there's a will, there's a way. And if we make that prayer and we make that intention, God will guide us. God will make it happen for us. God will show us the way, as long as we put forth our energy towards that. It's time to come into community, come into unity. It's time to connect with others and bring families together and heal wounds and have important conversations about real shit. It's time to go deeper. We don't have time to be superfluous and superficial anymore. We don't have time, and pretty soon, I really believe there's going to be some big challenges that humanity is going to be struck with that are going to be quite shocking to some people. And it really, we're only going to be able to get through it with support from others, from the genius and wisdom that other people embody, because things have become so specialized, right? And before, you had to kind of be a jack of trades, a jack of all trades to be able to survive, back in the days on the prairie or wherever you were. You had to know how to build a house, you had to repair your own shit. And so now it's like, how that looks is like, yeah, train in as many things as you can, but it's also important to have our gift, our unique specialty to bring to the community. Like, This is what I do really well, and I've been honing it for my life. And this is my offering to contribute to the tapestry of community. This is my offering of love, and this is how I can best show up. And I will learn from you. And can you help me? Because you know how to do this really well. And I really respect how you've cultivated your skill, your craft, or your gift, and it takes a lifetime. It takes lifetimes to cultivate some of these gifts. And so let's draw upon the strength and the wisdom and the beautiful gifts that we all have, and learn from each other, and really step out of that competition paradigm, and really like step into the unified, we're in this together paradigm,
Brother, you embody your unique your unique gift and what you are collaborating on so well. Like, you just are yourself fully embodied. Like, it's in the best way. Seriously, man, I love it.
Thank you, brother. I received that. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here.
Yeah.
Thanks.